So the autopsy of the Kamala Harris campaign, as well as sort of the Democratic Party in general, continues. It's only been 3 weeks since the election. And there are some progressives and commentators on X talking about how they think that Tim Walz was a terrible pick for Kamala Harris, that he might have cost her the election, or at a minimum that, well, he just didn't help her at all, and may have hurt her. So we all know the story of how Harris was tasked with choosing her VP nominee very, very quickly. July 21st, Biden drops out. The DNC is coming up in mid-August, and Harris is looking at a lot of these Democratic governors like Roy Cooper, Andy Beshear, Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, Gretchen Whitmer, allegedly, and Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, not a governor. But so she's looking and narrowing down her finalists, and people on the right are going crazy because she picks Tim Walz. They say, oh, this is going to be a guaranteed loss for her. This was a terrible idea. She should have picked Josh Shapiro because he's the governor of Pennsylvania, and that would help her win Pennsylvania. There were even people accusing her of anti-Semitism for not picking Josh Shapiro, which I thought was a major reach. But yeah, Tim Walz is a governor of a pretty solidly blue state, Minnesota. So Harris really didn't need to worry about winning Minnesota, but she seemed to be won over by his charisma, his confidence, and his ability at the same time to sort of act like a normal guy, you know, just to kind of be folksy, to kind of get along with people, and to be a good attack dog as well, actually. He's kind of got like the toughness and the niceness at the same time. But there was this thread on X from Chris Saliza. This guy, you know, people make fun of him a lot. He's a little goofy, but he posted, "We or I can now safely pronounce that the Tim Walz VP pick was a total dud. Let me explain." So he's going to talk about why he thinks Tim Walz was not a good choice. I looked at these reasons. Let's just say I think most of them are true, but I don't know how compelling they are as to how Tim Walz is actually a dud. So let's read some of them. Tim Walz did not lose Harris the race, first of all. Josh Shapiro would not have made Harris win Pennsylvania. So, yeah, that's that much is true. I do not think that Josh Shapiro would have guaranteed Harris Pennsylvania. Remember that Harris had an incredibly compressed timeline to choose a VP. From the day Biden dropped out to the day Harris picked Walz, that was 16 days. That's it. And Harris peaked at the exact right time. Just as she was looking around for a VP, Walz was the hottest thing in politics. He had cracked the code on how to attack Trump. He was plain-spoken. He was a football coach. To be clear, I think Harris genuinely liked Walz and felt a rapport with him, and that she and her strategists convinced themselves that Walz's, quote, big dad energy might help her appeal to critical voters in the upper Midwest. Seemed like a reasonable thing to think at the time. I mean, you know, you got to win over the Midwest. This guy is just like pure Midwest dad. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and he might not have had as much of an effect as we thought, or maybe he was just too hidden, too much hiding in the basement and not getting out in public enough and rizzing up the voters, so to speak. But without weird, Walz is never on her radar, period. So that's, yeah, of course, when Tim Walz said, look, these guys are just weird. And he never really found a second act after weird. Yeah, that's kind of true. There was a whole mind your own dang business quote that he had, like, that kind of resonated, you know, like standing up for freedom, but not as much as the weird thing. Yes, there was excitement about the ticket after the pick, but in retrospect, that looks to me a lot like excitement that Biden wasn't the nominee anymore. Probably true. Democrats were excited that their nominee could speak complete sentences and would stay up past 8 p.m. Like, if Harris had picked Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer, would the energy have been less? I don't think so. The energy on the left would have been less, for sure. Josh Shapiro's got the Israel issue where he's really supportive of Israel. I think a lot of the pro-Palestine types would be really disappointed with that. I think Gretchen Whitmer is Gretchen Whitmer is significantly to the right of Tim Walz. I don't think I mean, she's fairly progressive, but like, she doesn't have the record that he does. She wouldn't have generated as much enthusiasm among the left. And actually, you had establishment types supporting Tim Walz. Joe Manchin liked Tim Walz. So he was kind of just liked across the spectrum of the Democratic Party. So I don't know if I agree with Chris Cillizza on that. Walz was mediocre at best in the VP debate. That's kind of true. His tendency to exaggerate / misremember details about his past turned into a national story, and toward the end of the campaign, he was just a non-entity. That's also kind of true, although there were some videos of him talking to voters and convincing them to vote for Kamala Harris, talking about policy and doing a really good job. So I wouldn't say he was a total non-entity, but he was probably underutilized. Add it up and you get this. Walz was a mediocre pick based largely on a viral moment. And with hindsight being 2020, there was clearly a better VP pick available to Harris. Yeah, there probably was, although I'm not sure who that was. There certainly was a better strategy for Tim Walz. He could have been a little better at that debate, for sure. There are a lot of people, I'm not going to name names, who are progressives, who are going into that VP debate like, I can't wait. He's going to destroy J.D. Vance. He's going to be like a disappointed father to him. He's going to put him in his place. And then the debate ends up being a wash. And in fact, arguably, Vance wins on style, with a lot of progressives kind of conceding that Vance didn't do bad stylistically at all. And that even if they think Walz won on substance, Vance just looked better and looked more prepared, looked more confident. Tim Walz had a few of those deer in headlight facial expression moments during the debate, which was kind of unfortunate. But I think even if he had killed it in the debate, that wouldn't have changed the result of this election. It wouldn't have. VP debates tend to not be very well remembered. It would have been entertaining for a lot of progressives if Walz had absolutely dominated Vance, but he didn't, and even if he did, I don't think that leads to a Kamala Harris victory a month later. So yeah, my verdict is that Tim Walz probably did not hurt Kamala Harris. He probably could have done better though, and there probably was a better pick out there. There probably was someone who could have shored up the swing states just a bit more. I don't want to say for certain who that was. Hindsight is 2020. You know, we don't want to just spend a bunch of time speculating, but yeah. Of course, a lot of people on the right are probably going to say that Tim Walz hurt Kamala Harris because they think, oh, he's a crazy far left lunatic. But like, that's not how he came across. He came across as kind of just a generic Midwest dad. You know, he coded as more like centrist. Like he's an old white guy or a middle-aged white guy. Really, he owns guns. Like he doesn't have his hair dyed blue or anything. He doesn't have tattoos and piercings. So yeah, he's just the whole far left repels voters thing. I don't agree with that, but I do think that this could have been done better. So yeah, that's my verdict. Let me know what you think in the comments. How do you think Tim Walz affected the race? Please leave a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel if you like this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.